Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Justaposition, the podcast where we explore mental health, vulnerability, and life experiences with some creators and people you know and love. And today's guest, I think it's the first time I'm having two guests on, actually. I've only ever had one guest at a time, but we have double the pleasure of having the stars of Breaking Beauty podcast, Jill and Carlene. I'm super stoked to have you guys on because I had the privilege of being on your guys' podcast. How long ago was that now?
That was
2 years.
2020, late 2020. Your New York Times article had just come out.
Oh,
and,
yeah, that's right.
You hadn't even launched your skincare yet, or you certainly didn't have a podcast. Yeah. So we're so excited to catch up with you and really grateful that you made time to have us on your show. We're really excited.
Yeah.
Of course.
We're excited to be part of your very first Audible menage a trois.
Yes. It's such an honor having you guys on like 2 years later. And also I'm going to be on an episode of your guys' podcast after this as well. So everyone who's watching or listening, make sure you check that out as well. Be sure and subscribe and stream their episodes because you guys, one of the reasons I love your content is because you really take a refreshing approach to talking about beauty in a way that's like out of the box from kind of the standard conversations that you see online when it comes to breaking down beauty. And for anyone who's like new to you guys, I'd love if you guys want to like introduce what your, podcast entails and kind of your own personal story and journey online.
Sure, absolutely. So yes, we're Carlene and Jill from Breaking Beauty podcast. And we always say we're two beauty editors turned podcasters. And we are just delivering you the damn goods every single week. And, our history is that we came from magazines. Mm-hmm. And that's actually how Jill and I met. So we're like dinosaurs compared to probably, the baby beauty lovers who are listening and watching right now. We've come a long way, and coming from the magazine world, it's just so different, I think, mm-hmm. than coming up like through YouTube. And as a creator that way, we've had to like work in reverse and try to figure out how to, upload things to TikTok or whatever. But yeah, we would write like long form articles mm-hmm. and, produce photo shoots. So it was very different. For myself, I worked at a fashion magazine in the beauty department. So I would go backstage at like New York Fashion Week or mm-hmm. Paris Fashion Week and interview people like Charlotte Tilbury and Pat McGrath who were creating the looks. I've done a photo shoot with Charlotte Tilbury before and just like going on press trips and, interviewing people like Marc Jacobs mm-hmm. for, when he first started his makeup line. Going to Coco Chanel's apartment. So it's all very glamorous, but it kind of all wound down. Mm-hmm. And Jill was doing all of those same things and more. She also does local television, and she can speak for herself, really. Mm-hmm. But that's how we met, was like these press trips. They were so fun. And I'm sure you've met people the same way, right? Mm-hmm. We would be in the same car. Yeah. We would be at the same events. We always say we were shutting down the hotel lobby bar and like, drinking the free champagne. Yes. And that's how we bonded. And so, yeah, like just when magazines sort of started pittering out, that's when we really saw an opportunity. There were very few beauty podcasts in mm-hmm. the space at that time. We've been around for 5 years. Yeah. So yeah, we jumped in. And so, yeah, we started out interviewing founders of beauty brands. We kind of were, it was the era of like how I built this. Everyone mm-hmm. was obsessed with entrepreneurship. But we've really evolved as well. So now we interview like a lot of great facialists and dermatologists to get all of their best tips for everybody. And we do a lot of product reviews as well, which are very popular.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. And if I were to just add one thing to that, Hyram, I think the biggest difference, and by the way, this is Jill speaking. We always have to differentiate our voices. I would say the biggest difference now compared to the content we created before is we are part of the story now. Whereas coming up in editorial and magazines, we were always behind the scenes. We were never meant to be front and center. And so we come from the world of fact checking and taking 6 weeks to write something, and it's edited and edited and edited. And like, you really learn a lot through that whole process of like crafting a story. And so when Carlene and I would go on these press trips for exciting launches, and the brand founder would be there telling us about their, wow, like this is how they came up with this innovation, or this is their, you know, their mom's personal story that inspired this product, and your mind is blown, but there's nowhere in the magazine to even like add that in. Like, I was sitting with this founder and this happened. Like, that was not happening. So when we started the podcast, it honestly was a learning curve, I think, for us to allow ourselves to editorialize a bit, add the narrative in. And we actually had people reach out to us and say as much. They were like, we really love what you're doing, but we need to hear more from you. We were very much like putting the founder first and the content creator first rather than ourselves. So I think over time we've become more comfortable with that, and realized that people, yes, they came for the content, they came from the big names like Victoria Beckham or whatnot, but they stayed because of us. And I think that's just a huge departure from the editorial world that we came up in.
I think it must be such a cool contrast to go, you know, from a place of being behind everything like you were describing, you know, from a very corporate style approach to information surrounding beauty, to a more, you know, forward-facing platform where you can kind of talk a little bit more at free will, I'd say, I imagine, is what I've been able to get from listening, you know, to episodes of your podcast, is just you guys being able to talk freely about your opinions, your expertise, your knowledge of the industry. And what a cool transition it must be to go from working in a more editorial environment to now kind of breaking into the new age of beauty information, which is social media, you know, dominant. And actually I have a few questions about that as we get into the podcast, where I want to kind of dissect what your guys' opinions and thoughts are of like what this new age of social media means for beauty, and if it's good, if it's bad, all that kind of stuff. But before we even get into that, I want to ask, because I ask every single guest this, and I feel like you guys will have some really golden responses. What is the worst thing that both of you have done to your skin, and how does it contrast to your skincare routine now? What is the juxtaposition of what's the worst thing you did versus what you do now?
I mean, I think I can start. I grew up, I was just a total drugstore girly. Everything I used on my skin was from the drugstore. I still appreciate a lot of things at the drugstore, but I was like, the harsher, the better. Do not pass go. I was like running past the CeraVe, running past the Cetaphil. I'm like, do not give me that. Give me the Oxy pads that when you peel the foil back, like your hair blows back because you can smell so much alcohol. So I think that's like one thing that I was just not... Yeah, I was not educated on skincare at all. I just got drawn in by the commercials, Noxzema or whatever, or, you know, if it tingles, it's working. That's kind of was my ethos, I would say. And definitely over time, I've like learned so much being a beauty editor. And I think I also definitely skimped on SPF back in the day, especially when I was outside playing sports and all of that.
Did. It's okay. We've all done that.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm repenting for those days now. And now I'm just like, I really am looking for, you know, the most minimal steps that deliver results. And the kinder that you are to your skin, I think the better results that you will see ultimately. And that took a while to learn.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. I'd love to hear from you. Tell us the skincare horror story that you have.
I mean, I think it's not uncommon. Maybe you haven't heard this on your show because, you know, you have to be of a certain era to do this, but the baby oil, you know, like the baby oil all over the body to get a tan. I definitely did that.
For tanning.
And like,
wow.
I remember, sorry, I have to clarify. Yes, for tanning. So I remember my girlfriend and I, we would put on the baby oil, and like, we actually climbed up to the roof of her garage so that we could get like closer to the sun to get a better tan. I mean, we were just short of like holding silver tinfoil like in front of us, or, you know. And I'm a very pale person, so I didn't do this a lot, but definitely just in my teen years I did. And, that was probably the biggest sin that I committed.
Oh, that I have to say, like, I know how intense it can be to go up on the roof. Not because I did it for tanning, but I actually used to do roofing projects where I would be laying shingles and stuff like that. I know you would never think a homosexual as, extra as me would be doing roofing projects, but I was up there, I was doing roofing.
Handyman?
Yeah. And
Kudos
it
to
would
you.
reflect.
That seems like really hard work.
Oh, it was hard work. So much respect to people who do that because it is grueling. And one of the most grueling aspects of it, and why I would literally cover myself from head to toe, was because the sun reflects against the shingles and it increases like the sun damage. So laying up there with baby oil is basically like, a turkey ready for cooking. Ooh.
Yeah, it's cringeworthy. I know.
But you've come so far. Like, look at the contrast. Look at the juxtaposition.
I have.
It's amazing. It's really cool to see. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing those, heart-wrenching stories. I appreciate it. It's cool to see. It's cool to see the contrast. But like diving into it, I really want to talk about kind of, given your past experience working in the editorial space, working in the more, traditional marketing of, beauty, like what we saw in, the old-fashioned magazines and everything, versus this new age of social media where everyone's on TikTok talking about beauty products and sharing so much information, sometimes, without the fact checking that you guys are experienced with. Like, what are your thoughts on the democratization of, skincare information on social media nowadays? Like, do you feel that it's beneficial? Do you feel that it's harmful? What are your guys' opinions on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good and bad, like everything to do with social media. You could say that, like, there's been so many things that are positive, like social change has happened over social media. But then on the other hand, there's some really like tragic stuff as well, where just people feel really small and not empowered. So I think the thing when it comes to beauty is that, the good part is that bringing attention to the topic of skincare. And, we talked about this on when we had you as a guest originally 2 years ago. What we like about what you do on TikTok is like, you give some really solid advice to really young people who aren't necessarily here to be watching dermatologists, or especially again, like back in the day before TikTok, like dermatologists weren't even on TikTok. Or like, how would you even access them unless your parents took you and you had the money and the time for that? Exactly. So there was definitely this wall. It was really inaccessible to get information. And again, even like blogs, reading articles, like who's going to do that? Young people aren't going to do that. So these quick hits of information, that's the good part. I think there's a lot of people who are DIYing and saving their own skin. But of course, the flip side to that is there are also these crazy challenges and that are really not good for your skin, which you know about, obviously, with your reaction videos. And a lot of misinformation too, and a lot of fear mongering and stuff like that, that just, it's the good and the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Jill, what are your thoughts?
I think the biggest positive that I see is that you can find somebody that looks like you on social media and see what products are working for them. And I do it all the time. Like, there's a makeup artist in the UK, one of the Pixie Wu sisters, Nicola Chapman, and she has a very similar eye shape to me. And literally I'll just go and be like, which mascara doesn't transfer on her, or which eyeliner does she like? I mean, she's a makeup artist too by trade, so I really obviously trust her opinions, but I didn't clue in until very recently that I was doing that, like seeking out people who maybe have my same skin tone or type, or I've heard them talk about
eye
having
color,
big pores or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I can actually just like go and see what they thought about it. And I think that's very empowering on TikTok and on YouTube. And you can, because these are algorithms, you can be so specific with your searches now, and you can stumble upon somebody who you maybe didn't even know about before. And I just think that is epic. Like if I was in my bedroom as a teen and I could do that, I would be so engaged and just like feeling like I knew this person. And I think that's really cool, actually.
Yeah. Well, and just to add to that, even like Pinterest, when they started with their search engine, and you could search by skin tone and actually like search for images that are your skin tone. Like it's incredible. And again, to speak to Jill's point, you can find information that's more relevant to you. You definitely could not do that before in the magazine world.
Yeah. And in beauty media, definitely, certainly in New York and in London and all the big cities, I think for a long time, it was quite a privileged job to get. There was not a lot of diversity on staff, so I'll be completely honest, and it has changed, thankfully. So I think honestly some of the editors weren't even thinking to ask the questions, will this work on this skin tone, will this work with this hair type? And it's frankly pretty embarrassing to admit now, but I see the change, and I am really happy for that. And I'm also in the space where I can acknowledge like how far we've come from where we were. So I think it is really all good in that respect.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to touch on that I think has been most empowering about social media is not only, accessibility to people, who have similar, skin challenges or, wanting to achieve, similar makeup styles. But I think even more importantly, the recognition of like, people of color, Black people, skin of color, the specific, concerns or issues or just the ability to connect with people who have never been represented in the beauty space and traditional beauty advertising, who, people who never got a chance to see themselves and see the specific concerns that they, whether it be skin type or hair type, whatever it may be. I think that's one of the most incredible things about social media is that there's such a large community of people who maybe have not been represented in the past that are now getting that proper representation. And not only representation, people who have their genuine, specific concerns in mind and who are able to help them in that way, which I think, is well overdue. Well, in every single, sector of our society, but, specifically in the beauty space where there is that sensitivity to, our natural insecurities and how that can kind of translate over into what the beauty industry propagates. I think it's really cool to see that democratization. But at the same time, like what you were talking about before, the challenges around misinformation and fear mongering and, someone who maybe just decides to make a fun DIY, face mask at home that has no idea about the, long-term implications that could cause for someone else's skin, being on a platform where they can get millions of views and millions of likes, having no idea the damage that could cause, which is one of the reasons, I started creating content in the first place, but also one of the reasons I find it so encouraging that dermatologists now have such a prevalence, and estheticians and chemists have such a prevalence, in the space, and really connecting to Gen Z specifically in a new way. And I wanted to ask you guys, like, what are your thoughts on Gen Z and beauty and kind of the new relationship that is being formed because you guys have been in the beauty space for a good amount of time, and how that kind of contrasts to what we've seen in the past with, millennials or older generations and the way that they've interacted with beauty. I'd love to hear your kind of perspective on that.
I mean, I think it's value-based much more than it was before. Even 5 to 10 years ago, nobody really cared what the brand's values were. You just bought a product from the department store if it was on sale or not, or, if you thought it was going to make your wrinkles go away. And I think it's definitely just so different now where there's such a focus on cruelty-free, having that designation. And then also genderless beauty and, Black owned brands, just as we're talking about, finding a brand that feels like you have an affinity to it that goes well beyond, what it's going to do for your skin is just a complete transformation in the beauty industry that is definitely driven by Gen Z and, brands who want to speak to and attract Gen Z. And I still think like a boomer or maybe a millennial is like less inclined to go for those products for that reason specifically. Whereas with Gen Z, it's like they're demanding it, you know?
Yeah, I completely
think
agree.
that's the biggest difference.
Yeah. What about you, Jill?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think there's, to kind of echo what Carlene said, is just about conscious consumerism in general. And we had a really great interview with Sharon Shooter. She's the founder of Beauty, and she's just like one of the best thought leaders in beauty today. Like my job was on the ground the whole time we were talking to her, and we get to speak to so many amazing people like that. And she was just talking about this value-based system and how come beauty is so much more like, people will boycott a beauty brand if they feel like it is not representing their values. It goes beyond just not buying it. They will cause a ruckus online and boycott it, and it's just that much more. People just feel that much. It's that much more personal. And then I think another or side note from that or sidebar is just like the whole peer-to-peer influence in Gen Z is unmatched with I feel like millennials or even boomers, Gen X. It is just so much more about Gen Z speaking to Gen Z and being able to, there's all these like TikTok obviously and Be Real, all of these platforms where they want to connect and get legit advice from each other. And what I find so refreshing about Gen Z is just like everything's like a little bit funny or tongue in cheek, and like they don't take the beauty industry so seriously compared to how it was just like so photoshopped and perfect before. And I really appreciate that. It can kind of be like beauty-tainment too on TikTok. I love that.
Yeah, I love that you touch on that, because I know that like it's not hard to find a lot of criticism for Gen Z, and I'm a person I'm a zillennial, which is so lame. I feel like that term is just so lame, but like I'm right in between millennial and Gen Z, so I don't like fully identify with both. But I think one of the most incredible things about Gen Z is their terrifyingly good potential to really have influence over the market and push brands to be more responsible and have value-based decisions in their business practices. And that's one of the reasons, when I created Selfless, the goal was really to hone in on that social impact, that value driven from a philanthropy perspective type business and product. And one of the refreshing things about it is seeing the way that it was able to connect with Gen Z on such a refreshing level, because I've been able to see how important it is to the younger generation, and how much they really prioritize wanting to make sure that the products that they are consuming are having as positive impact on the world as possible. And in line with that too, with what you were talking about, Jill, just this new level and new age of authenticity. It's really, I think, unprecedented, because media, as we know it, has always been so, studio production value, airbrushed on every single level. Everything has a full team of people working on it. And even for me, I feel old, even talking about the 2015, 2016 beauty era, where it was like everything studio production for even YouTubers, and just very polished and very perfected, and videographer, photographer, this and that. Where now Gen Z, specifically when it comes to beauty products, they're like, I don't want to see some super polished, some super perfected model talking about a skincare product. I want to see the everyday person who lives a lifestyle just like me, who has the same concerns that I do, who does the same thing every day as me, talking about beauty products, talking about the way that it interacts with their skin. And I think it's really refreshing to see, honestly, because it's just this reformation of connectivity and connection that I think tends to get so lost in the world of social media, where it does feel like sometimes it does disconnect us as a society. I think it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah. And I do think it's driving the conversation forward in other types of media. I honestly do. Carlene and I have talked at length about, just the transformation of Vogue or Anna Wintour. You would not have seen Lizzo on the cover of Vogue 10 years ago. There's just no way. And I think that they're sort of, it's pushing these other traditional types of media forward. And I love that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Like even Lizzo or seeing like Emma Chamberlain at the Met Gala, talking to people and stuff like that. I'm just like, I know I'm obsessed with her, like love her so much. And even like Liza Koshy too. And I'm like 5 years ago, like over Anna Wintour's dead body, would a YouTuber be at the Met Gala? But it's cool, to see these people that, have such a powerful sense of relatability to Gen Z as a whole, like having more space. But like you said, like Lizzo on the cover, more diversity, a push for that. I think it's obviously there's a big conversation around intent and, its relation to like, business and what's driving those decisions. But regardless, I'm like, it's so cool knowing that, these people who have never been, and these specific groups and minorities and races who have never been represented within the beauty space, let alone the traditional media space, now have that platform and can connect to millions of, people who never once felt represented before. It brings me a lot of like hope for the future. What have you felt pressure increase by now, having your own brand, having your own podcast, being forward facing, and has it had any like mental health ramifications, and how do you kind of, deal with that?
For myself, I mean, I guess in terms of mental health, like it's been really positive, to be honest, in the sense that, like Jill was saying earlier, we have such a closer relationship with our audience where people are dropping into our DMs and, they leave us reviews, and it's just much more personal. Whereas before we would be writing these stories and they just went out in the ether and like you would never hear anything back. So for myself, I feel really connected in a way that makes my job more meaningful when we are telling these stories. And like I said, a lot of people really appreciate when we do review products. That's what Jill and I have always said, is that this industry is so cluttered. We're trying to help people understand just what the best of the best is, just the way that we have as beauty editors. We've seen it all. We've swatched it all. We know right away when something's bullshit and when it's not, when something's legit and when it's garbage. So that's what we're trying to like share with our audience, so that at the end of the day, they're not going out and buying all this gimmicky crap and just like wasting their money. We're trying to help a sister or brother out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel really rewarded when somebody jumps into our DMs or whatever and says, I know you love this moisturizer, Carlene. I bought it too. I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm so in love with it. I really, this or that. And I'm like, I feel really good about that. I think the only time that it has a negative effect is like every once in a blue moon, but honestly, it is not often. Every once in a blue moon, we'll get a negative review. And that, that stings. Yeah, and I'm sure you have to deal with this like way, way more in what you do. Because TikTok, I feel, is like people just really, disconnect themselves from their comments. And they're like, I'm just going to say absolutely whatever the F I want. And I really don't give a shit how I'm leaving that person. Right. So yeah, with us, what we would see is like, in our reviews, and I feel bad, like, for especially in the beginning, I'm like, I'm sorry. Especially if it was something like our Valley Girl voices, which I'm a product of my era. I can't stop it. I can't control it. That's why when uncut Joms happened, I was like, yes, I'm not the only one. Yes. So yeah, that can, but I think I'm getting better at that. I think I'm getting better because predominantly we get so many more positive reviews that I'm like, whatever, every once in a while it's going to happen and, heard, but it's not the gospel, what somebody says, right? Yep. Somebody on our show had a really good phrase about that, Jill. I can't remember what it was now. They can say it, but doesn't mean you have to believe it or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think that the podcast space is just a bit safer in general. I kind of say it's like the suburbs of the internet, because it's hard to leave a review. You really have to go out of your way to leave a review. And also, for the most part, if people are listening to us talk, like our episodes are 45 minutes long, like they probably aren't hate listening, I'm guessing, where I will hate watch TikToks. Fully admit that, or hate watch a show. I will do that, but I don't think I hate listen to podcasts. So maybe we're like in a bit of a different space, but I will admit one of the biggest stumbling blocks for me to get on TikTok and show our face a bit more. And I find it so fun. Like I love consuming content on there, but people are savage in the comments. Yeah, the trolls are off the rails, and it is a thought that goes through my head. Do I really want to be going on there and somebody says my eyebrows look bad, or you know, whatever the case may be, and you're just like just because comment. it's like they just make the comment, keep on scrolling. It's almost like offhanded that they do it. So I don't think I would take too much I don't think I would be like too bummed about it, but I do think about it, because I see the comments that have been on some of our TikToks that have gone somewhat viral with certain guests that we've had, and I'm just like, how, that's so rude. I'm literally like, how rude. I've never
we have one post that's 1.4 million views on TikTok. We're like, oh my god, we've made it. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
But yeah, it's with Michaela Makeup, and she's been a guest on our show, and we're absolutely in love with her.
So cool.
She's amazing. She was so vulnerable on our show, and she tells this great story about her accent and how she used to get bullied for it.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
So we used the clip on TikTok, and those are the comments where it's just, I think when we first started seeing some of the negative comments, I was like, Jill, like, should we take this down? I don't want people coming for her like this. But then, we're just not used to it, right? And we're like, this is it. She's used to this, obviously. She knows the drill, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's ruthless on TikTok, and that's a cool perspective from a podcast space, because you're absolutely right. I love that, like the suburbs of the online world. It's that's, I think, one of the cool thing about podcasts is that the level of dedication that a viewer will have to like listen to a 45-minute episode really curates, I think, a very uplifting and kind and really supportive audience. And that's cool to see. And honestly, I feel like you guys coming from traditional media, working for a magazine, I'm sure this was a relief in terms of, the chaos of the mental health, because I've heard just how intense and how aggressive and how, just go that environment can be. I'm sure it's, even more relaxing now, and even, easier on the mental health now versus what you guys had to deal with.
The devil wears Prada of it all. Yes, I
yes.
hear you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Those were stressful times. There was actually a lot of truthy moments in that movie.
Yeah. So I've heard, which is so interesting to me because I love that movie. I have seen it like so many times. It's one of those like gay awakening movies, I call it, where every time I watch it, I'm just like, but yeah, I've heard from multiple people where they're like, it's not totally far off. It's not all fiction.
Yeah.
Certain things, just like the dynamic,
Yeah, the dynamic is intense, because what I didn't mention off the hop is like, or I kind of alluded to it with the privilege. It's like it's an environment where you have to work for free for a very long time until you get your foot in the door. And like I remember like working late at night at like retail jobs and stuff, just so I could like be there during the day. And when you look back on it, you're like, whoa, that would really never fly today. But you were just kind of like always told, like, someone like do it or suck it up, go get the coffee.
A million girls would kill for your position.
Yes, that's it. That was always
real.
the thing.
That was very real.
Very
real.
real.
I guess I better get, and then you're just putting in the late nights, wanting to be the last one there, just because you're like, how do I prove that I am the one who wants it the most, And so it's a pretty messed up dynamic, and I'm glad that there have been changes made in that respect.
Yeah, yeah. And it's cool that you guys have been able to take that knowledge and, you know, everything that you were able to learn from that industry and really apply it to what you do now. And in so much stronger of a sense, have like, you know, really ownership over like what you guys are creating and the community that you have cultivated and the positivity and the, you know, the change that you're making that way. And I love that you were talking about how, you know, your listeners love hearing about like product reviews and like what you recommend and what you touched on specifically with like, you know, increasing that accessibility from a product perspective and like being able to recommend products that have a positive impact on someone's skin where they're like, oh my gosh, my skin totally changed and improved so much. Thank you so much. Like I can say from my personal experience, that's like the best feeling in the world. Like when you're able to know that a recommendation you made had such a positive impact in someone else's life. And it's cool that you guys have that impact. And I, on that note, want to ask, what are your like holy grail product obsessions, the products that you just have to have in your routine? Because as a fellow, you know, skincare, beauty addict, I simply must know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I talk about this brand all the time because I'm not lying. It's my favorite, and it's Clé de Peau.
Oh,
so it's a
yes.
Yes. Well, I'm bougie. So it's a Japanese skincare brand. The parent company is Shiseido, and it just, for myself, they have the most beautiful daily moisturizer with SPF. It's called the Emulsion. Mm-hmm. And it has just this very, very slight, like pearly, but it's so slight, like you don't even really detect it. Mm-hmm. But it just gives you like this refreshing, gorgeous glow. And I know it doesn't have a high SPF in it. It's only 20. Mm-hmm. But I just like, I don't know. And that's the one where somebody dropped into my DMs and she was like, you know what? She said something like, I actually was like going through a hard time and I spent the money on it because it's like over $100. Mm-hmm. And she's like, and I just love it. And I wanted to let you know it made me so happy. And I was like, yes, so awesome. Thank you. And also I love their essences, their hydrating essences, because I'm really dehydrated. And so I love that extra step. I find for myself, it's totally worthwhile. It just really like, that with the moisturizer together is like chef's kiss. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they have that's like the most beautiful packaging. Oh my gosh. Like Clé de Peau packaging literally looks like it should be kept in a glass box with like a security camera on it. Cause it looks like diamonds, you know, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. And their makeup, I will say that they've been doing refillable makeup since like the beginning of time. They were one of those like luxury brands that were doing it. And now it's like all trendy. Mm-hmm. But they were doing it from day one. Just saying.
Innovators.
And it's such an interesting brand because it is Japanese, but the name is French. Like Clé de Peau means like keys to great skin, basically, is what it means. And it's got all that Japanese technology, but like that French luxe feel. It's definitely worth the money. It's damn good, as we say.
The textures. It's like they've got it down. The textures, all of that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Man, I've never been so convinced to try out Clé de Peau. It's so funny on my channel. So good. I every once in maybe once a year, I'll be like, okay, I'll spend over $100 on a skincare product. I am, cheap, but every once in a while, I'm like, I'll do it. So you're definitely convincing me. It's sounding convincing. Jill, what are some of your one of your top holy grail products?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say kudos to you on Selfless by Hyram because I did try it and I love so many of the products and I know how hard that must be to get a product line off the ground. So major kudos to you on that front.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk about a couple of newer discoveries for me. This one is a sunscreen that was sent to me by Stylevana, that website.
Oh, yeah.
And the brand is actually called, it was totally new to me brand. It's called Skin 1004. And the product is full name. It's a mouthful. It's called Madagascar Centella Hyaluronic Cica Water Fit Sun Serum SPF 50. New discovery. It's like $20 on there. And I love it.
Wow, that's so cool. I love Centella, especially in a sunscreen formula and Korean sunscreen. Yes, that sounds so cool.
I've just been loving it. Like, you know how you have all of these products on your vanity? I'm sure you're the same. We are very spoiled. We get a lot to try. And you know, you just like keep reaching for one, like not even looking. Like that's what I've been doing all summer with this product. I absolutely love it for my rich girl walks or poor girl walks, whatever the case may be on the day. And then another one that's like a holy grail to me that it's like this one is looking a little bit beat up, but the Dermalogica microfoliant. Have you tried this?
I have, yeah. That, oh my gosh, that has a cult following. I love it. Like, I am so anti-scrub, but when it comes to like a polish, I'm like, if you're going to do like the kind of like scrubbing style exfoliation, using a very fine powder like that one is definitely the way to go.
It almost like melts into a paste in the palm of your hand and has like an enzymatic action on the skin. I've been using it for so many years and it just really, my skin's never red afterwards. I absolutely love it. I recommend it to so many people because it is just like gentle exfoliation. You look glowing, gorgeous afterwards. And I'm
what about the newer milk foliant? Have you guys tried that one?
I haven't.
The Dermalogica one?
I haven't even heard of it.
It's supposed to be, I've tried it a couple times. It's a gentler version. Of the original microfoliant. It's called the milk foliant. And so that's more like for sensitive skin people like me. I didn't notice a huge difference, but yeah, I think the little rice particles and everything are a bit smaller. So yeah, it's more milky. So anyone who would like to try that one, it just came out a couple months ago.
Oh yeah. And I'm going to close it out. I'm doing a whole show and tell here, guys. I'm sorry.
I love it. It's so great.
No, I can't stop.
It's amazing.
Is that a foot cream? Are you hitting him with a foot cream?
No, I'm not even joking. Everybody needs to know about this. I was the person with the cracked heels even after a pedicure, I swear. And my girl, Naomi at Tips Nail Bar, she was like, just buy this. Just do it. I know you get a lot of stuff, but do it. It works. And she was right. So the name of the product is called Foot Logic. It is the least sexy product you'll ever see. And it's called the Rough Skin Formula Mousse. And it works. If you're out there and your feet are looking a little busted after the summer and you're listening to this, just get this, order it off Amazon, and put it on 2 times a day. And it's a mousse, so it absorbs right away. You're not like slipping and sliding all over your bedroom floor before you go to bed, or in your shoes before you head outside. So those are my little summer staples that I wanted to share with you.
I love it. No, thank you for sharing. And I'm definitely going to get the Foot Logic product because like I sometimes have dry feet, but I struggle with really dry elbows. And a lot of times I just don't like the thick body creams that are really greasy, especially being in Hawaii where it's so humid. I'm just like, I don't want, just to leave like grease everywhere. And because it's a mousse, that sounds like super interesting. So I'm definitely going to like send me one of your affiliate links and I'll buy it to support it. But thank you for sharing the products. Awesome. And thank you guys so much for coming on the episode. Like, it's really cool to hear your expertise and just your perspective, having, seen so many sides of the industry, and just also to reflect on the positive community and difference that you've been able to make through your podcast. It's really refreshing to see. And I really appreciate you guys coming on. So yeah, thank you.
Well, we really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. And everyone who's listening or watching, make sure you go check out our episode that we'll be doing together on the Breaking Beauty podcast. You can stream them, I believe, wherever you stream your podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So make sure you go and support them. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Justaposition, where there's new episodes every Thursday. And we talk about mental health, vulnerability with some creators you know and love. We've had a bunch of incredible interviews with some YouTubers, founders, just different leaders in the industry that I think you guys would find really interesting. And this has been a presentation of Cadence 13, an Odyssey studio. New episodes every Thursday. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you later. Mwah.